So 35 attendees already joined. It's 3 now, at least here for us, Central European time. Great to see so many of you here. Warm welcome. So as you see, as you've seen in your registration, assuming you've registered, that topic for today, the webinar today will be about publishing version documentation to a Confluence Cloud Help Center. I'm Laura, I'll be your host today. I have some support with me. I'll get to that in a bit. Now, if this is the first webinar you've joined, if this is the first time you've interacting with us, K15T, I'll say a few brief words just to introduce ourselves, who we are, who you're talking to. Before I start, just a few notes about housekeeping. So you'll be muted, you're currently muted, and that will be for the duration of the webinar. If you have questions, anything about what you see on the screen, but also just in general terms about logistics, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom. There's a Q&A tab there, and ask the questions whenever they come to you. You don't have to wait until the very end. However, we will answer them at the end. So we're also recording this, and we will anonymize and share it with you after the session. That way you can rewatch it and share it with your colleagues. If you do ask a question, I know we have a lot of different users today. We have some existing Confluence users. If you ask a question, it would be helpful if you also add if you're already using Confluence, and if yes, if you're using cloud or server. That will give us a little bit more context and will be helpful for us to answer your question. Now, so today, the reason you hopefully sign up is today you will see how you can use Confluence Cloud to version your documentation and then deliver this content to a help center so that your users can easily browse and navigate to the help they need in the version that they need. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of this, and then towards the end, so I'll briefly, after the introduction, say a few words to K15T, what our mission is, and something about what we do for technical documentation and teams managing technical documentation. Then we'll get right into the details of how our solution works to publish version documentation to a Confluence Cloud Help Center. Then we'll briefly touch on some takeaways and resources. This is specifically interesting for those of you who are planning to migrate from server to cloud and want a little bit more guidance on that. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. Now, as I said, my name is Laura. I'm a user researcher for K15T. I work for our Scroll apps, both Scroll Viewport and Scroll Documents, which have now joined forces to bring to you this version documentation solution, which we've just released. And with me today, answering your questions are Anshuman, who's a product manager for Scroll Documents, and Stefan, who's the product manager for Scroll Viewport. So hopefully both of them will have all of the answers to your burning questions. So K15T, I know many of you are users already of some of our products. For those completely new, we've been around since 2009, so a little bit over 10 years now, building Atlassian apps. We're based in Stuttgart, which is in the south of Germany, founded by 2 people with a Confluence app and many great ideas. It's grown now to over 60 employees and 18 Confluence apps. We have apps, and we've been building apps on Atlassian products for both server and cloud. However, when it comes to our products, lately we've been focusing more and more on technical documentation for cloud. Our mission is to create the best possible solutions for technical documentation. moving more and more those capabilities to cloud. And we do believe, as many of you do as well, that Confluence is the best collaborative tool for creating documentation as a team. However, knowing that there are some limitations for Confluence, what we do with our Scroll apps is we build on top of that. And as I said, today we'll be talking about the integration between Scroll Viewport and Scroll Documents. Now, on the left side, you have Scroll Viewport. Scroll Viewport has been around for many years now. We just launched the cloud version back in May. Scroll Documents is a little bit younger. But on this one side, Scroll Viewport, that app really allows you to create and customize a help center using Confluence Cloud, so building on Confluence Cloud. And then on the right side, we have Scroll Documents, which allows you to control and manage your content on Confluence Cloud. Both together will bring you this new capability, which is to publish version documentation to a help center. So what does that look like? What does it get you? So very, just presenting what you'll get out of this is Confluence. Many of you have seen Confluence. Some of you are new to Confluence. So this might be how your documentation looks today. What Scroll Viewport does is it transforms this into a beautiful help center with just really a few clicks. Your content remains and stays here. You keep authoring, you keep managing all of the content here, and Scroll Viewport creates this for you. You have this, so the help center that Scroll Viewport brings to you is customizable. You can add your own branding. It's easy for your users to navigate and find your content. You have a search bar here, which is everywhere on the side. You can embed news feeds, this portal page, which really allows you to navigate if you have different products for users to pick a product and get the details that they need. We have very interesting integrations with tools like Zendesk or Jira Service Desk, which is now Jira Service Management, integrations with Google Analytics. So many things that you would expect from a help experience, not just as a team producing documentation, but also as a user looking for documentation. So this is what it looks like. So we have our product overview here. We have our release notes. We have a link to our support portal. We also have a support widget integrated here, and obviously our content that is really easy to navigate. We can get to this, and this, you've seen it before, this lives in Confluence still and can be managed there. Now, what is new here is this little feature here on top next to the search bar, which is what we call the version picker. So what it allows you to do is, well, specifically your users, is to actually pick the right version of the content that they need. So this is particularly helpful if you're managing or if you're delivering your product in different versions and your users are not always on the latest version. So you can use this picker, which follows you around everywhere, to switch the context very easily. So how do we get there? So this is really easy, and I'll show you. So I know the level of knowledge really differs, so I'll just assume that you know more or less what Confluence does, maybe had a look already, but are not familiar so much with our Scroll apps. So this is what your documentation might look like in Confluence Cloud today. So as you see, this is a page. It's covering probably more content for developers. Get started with development. So let's just, for the sake of this demo, pretend that we are a product team and we have this app called New App. And I know that a lot of you have dedicated spaces in Confluence for your product documentation already. Others might have your content still scattered around in many different tools and documentation and content management systems. But starting with a dedicated space is a great way to get together all of the product knowledge that already exists in your organization, and then start to fill in the gaps as a team using the collaborative features of Confluence Cloud, specifically the collaborative editor. So let's just start out with this, let's just pretend that we do have this content here already in our dedicated space for new app documentation. However you choose to organize your content in Confluence, the scroll apps will work with that. So this is just one of the examples. So for us here, let's just say new app. This is here our documentation for our 1.0 product version. And let's just assume up to this point, we have delivered this documentation via PDFs to our users. This is a really easy thing to do, even with just Confluence native functionality. We can click on the ... and export this to PDF, this and all of the rest of the pages. But obviously, this isn't the best experience for our users. And as we have seen, a help center has many advantages. So if we plan to move all of this content to a help center, and at the same time, we might face a situation where our development team has been working on a 2.0 software release or software version of new app, then we are looking at a situation where we want to write and add documentation for the upcoming 2.0 release without necessarily losing the content of our 1.0 release, right? And so this versioning capability, this versioning of your content is not possible with Confluence out of the box. You do have, if you're familiar with Confluence, if you click the ... here, you have access to the page history, but that's not the versioning we need. We're more looking for a snapshot of our content at a single point in time so that we, and especially our users, can reference past versions, and so that we can see how our documentation progresses over multiple releases. And this is where the power of scroll documents comes in. So with scroll documents, you can define, so remember, this whole space is our content. With scroll documents, you can define all of the pages of your documentation as a single unit. And this is what we call a scroll document. Now, once you've defined your content as a single unit, you can start managing this content together. That means that you can keep the content for each of your software releases separate. So as a first step, to turn all of your documentation into a single unit, we need to find that one overarching page that contains the entire set of pages that makes up your documentation. So in a space, it's really easy. That is the overview page. So think of the overview page as sitting on top of everything that you see listed out here. But I know some of you don't have dedicated spaces. You might have only a section. Well, then just navigate to that parent page, and that's the page we're looking for. So in our case, it's the space overview page, which is really the parent for all of our content. Now, you see the document toolbox here. This here gets added once you install Scroll Documents on Confluence Cloud. This is where we need to go now on this overview page. If we click this here, from here, we see it says Enable Scroll Documents. With this click here, we can unlock all of these powerful content management capabilities of the app, including versioning. So if we click, what we see now, we get all of these options here revealed. And as you can see the notification here, a document was created. As I said, the scroll document is that one single unit of content that we're looking for. So your whole page tree, which makes up your space, so your entire space, is now defined as a single unit. And as we can see here, this now represents the working version of your content. It reflects the latest state of our documentation. Now, if we're about to release software version 2.0, we will obviously need to adapt our documentation as well. But we know that the content as it is now, it will not change anymore for the 1.0 release. So what we need to do is, so that we can start preparing the changes for our software release 2.0, is that on this working version, we need to first save our snapshot for the 1.0 version. So we click Save a Version, and the only thing at this point that we really need is the version name. And in our case, it makes sense to just say 1.0. We can also add a description, we can add a status, and we can set restrictions I can get into more details around this, but these are all features that come with Scroll documents. As we can see here, this is the page tree that gets generated now. So we click Save and see the notification here. The version was created called 1.0. If we want to be extra sure, we can go back to the document toolbox here, click on working version, our version switcher here, and see that 1.0 is added. So we know now we have saved the snapshot, and we can now prepare the changes for the 2.0 release on the working version right here. So to do that, just follow your standard Confluence approach on how you create and collaborate on content. So you might say the 2.0 release has a new feature, so I need a new page now. Here, you just simply click Create and start writing the content. You can invite others in, you can add the screenshots, you can leave comments, everything that you usually do in Confluence until you're ready. And then you just hit publish here and you can see how it's added there. You make all of the rest of the changes, so some features might have improvements, so we might go back to the pages and make those changes. Now, when we're ready, and when we're ready with making all of the changes that are relevant for our 2.0 release, we just simply do the same as we did with 1.0. We go back to the document toolbox, we click Save a version. This time we call it 2.0, same process, and we save. And here at the bottom, we have this notification again. And just to be extra sure, can go to the document toolbox and see and navigate between our versions. Great. So we have versioned our content now. Now it's ready to go to our help center. So for that, we'll switch apps now. Now, Scroll Viewport is accessible from the top menu here under apps. So if we just click that and go to Scroll Viewport, the first thing we need to do is we need to create and define a new site. A site is simple as that. What you've seen at the start, the Help Center, that is a site. At this point, the only thing that we need is a site name. The URL gets it from the site name, but you can also customize it however you want. This is the default URL, so .scrollhelp.site, but later on you can also connect your custom domain if that's what you want to do. For the theme, for now, as I said, we launched back in May. For now, the only theme that you have is the Help Center theme. However, we find that for teams managing product documentation, help documentation, this is really, this is optimized for the use case. And with all of the additional customization options, you can really make this your own. So yeah, now we're ready to create the site. Nothing will go public until we later go live. So no stress about that. So we've created the site with this name, it's still offline. Now what we need to tell Viewport is what content actually to draw on. So we just click Add Content Source. And now here we have the option to either add a Confluence space or a scroll document. Now, if we add a scroll document, we're able to display multiple versions of our content on the site, which is not possible just with a normal Confluence space. So we're really interested in adding that new document that we've created. So we just enter the name, which was New App here, click Next, and then select the two versions that are ready and that have matching software versions. So that will make sense to our users. We select that, click Next. We can also define the URL segment for this document. So New App does make sense here. Click Save, and we see it added in the content source table. We can add as many content sources as we'd like. There's, well, I was going to say there's no limit to it. There probably is, but at least when it comes to your full product suite, you can add as many as you want. So let's for now, New App is the only app that we care about. So we click Next. Next, we really encourage you to edit your theme. As you have seen, the look and feel of the theme is really core to the experience of the Help Center. Let's skip it for now, pretend we've done that. So what we do is we generate a preview. Now, this is specifically a note for those users coming from Viewport on Confluence server. The way Viewport works here is that once we've told Viewport what content in Confluence we need, we pull that content and we generate a preview of the site. Viewport, for those of you who don't know, is a static site. So whenever you make updates in Confluence, they don't automatically reflect, which is actually great because if you're still working on the 3.0 release, you can use the working version, do all of the changes there, and then only if you click update side and generate this preview will everything be generated for you on the Help Center. So yeah, this is just to give you a little bit of background of how this works technically. Once the preview is generated, you can go live. So if we click go live, we can see our site switched to the status live. And if we look at it, it looks exactly as you've seen at the start, with the version picker right added to it. We don't need to do anything. So just by selecting multiple versions, it will automatically appear there. Our Confluence content is right here. So this reflects our overview page. The release notes, you can control that with page labels. I can also answer any specific question. If you've seen anything here and would like to know how to achieve that, we can touch on that later as well. But yeah, so the version picker follows you around. We have our new content for the 2.0 release here. We can navigate to another page and open the version picker here. And that's it. So in a matter of minutes, we've versioned our documentation. We've selected those versions and that document for our newly created Help Center, and we've published it to the web. So this is the basic functionality of what is new. Now, just a few more notes maybe. I'd rather have you take over the Q&A session in full length to really get to the details of your question. So yeah, this is the live site. You can, this is how it looks if you've made changes in Confluence or if you've added new content sources. You just update the site and then it goes live again. So this is what it looks like if you've added multiple products. You get this portal page here, which helps your users to navigate. So this is only there if you add multiple content sources, but we still can navigate to new app and do everything that we've seen before. Great. So as I said, before I wrap this up and we go to the Q&A session, I already see there's at least 9 questions already. Just a few notes on the 2 sides of the solution. And I know that there are different levels of knowledge. Some of you are current Scroll Documents users, so very familiar with the app, don't know much about Viewport. But when it comes to the 2 apps, so on the side of Scroll Viewport, the features that you get with this app is you can, as we have seen, add your own branding with the help of a visual theme editor. So for those of you coming from the server version, Viewport on Cloud requires no coding knowledge at all. So it's all the visual editor, which I can show you, to customize the logo, to customize the different sections of the site, the colors, the images. You can structure your content, and it all happens in Confluence. So we make use of page labels, for example. In terms of the hierarchy and order of pages, we take whatever you have in the space as well. You can define news feeds. We have used it in this example as a release notes. A portal page, if you have multiple products. You can also have pinned pages on your landing page. So, for those standout articles, for example, you can add header links as we have seen, and call to action buttons. You can embed support desk widgets from Zendesk, JSD, Freshdesk. You can also use Google Analytics to track this, some really helpful stats on the side. And the beauty of it really comes from you can keep authoring and collaborating in Confluence, especially if that's what you're already used to. That is very helpful for your team. none of the workflows have to change. So this is the visual theme editor for those of you who don't know. So you can customize the header here, embed your logo, change the text colors, all of that. Yeah, embed support links, for example. So yeah, so this is these are all of the sections that you can manage from here. Yeah, and then also the integrations. When it comes to scroll documents, as you have seen in the toolbox, versioning obviously is one aspect which we've already covered. You can also compare and track changes across versions. So this might be really helpful if you want to see what's changed from one release to the other. You can manage restrictions, set and track workflow statuses. You can organize page trees with new and existing pages, and you can send read requests and read confirmations if you really want to have people in your team have a look and confirm that they've checked and reviewed the content, for example. So what does that look like? So in the document toolbox, for example, you do have the versioning aspect of it, which we have seen in terms of statuses. These are the out-of-the-box statuses that you get. So you can save a version and then say, for example, it's outdated, to mark something as, you know, if something shouldn't go out to users anymore, that could be really helpful. In terms of restrictions, you can set custom restrictions, so you can add user groups in Confluence or users in Confluence and give them specific access to view your content, edit your content, or even edit the metadata of your document. Yeah, so this one is a really helpful feature if you're looking to organize a lot of pages in bulk. So with this organize page tree function here, what you have is you have a view of what it is your space sidebar here, nothing else. But with these shortcuts here, you can easily create new pages very quickly. So let's just assume we had the case with account management was added in our 2.0 release. If in the 3.0 release we have a lot of new options added to it, we can easily, with the plus, add more pages to it without necessarily going through Confluence, which would take longer. We can also use the search here to search our complete Confluence instance and add the pages in there. And then we have the option to either copy the content over, so we just create a copy of the page here, or also very powerful, we can say we want to include the page. What it does is, instead of producing a static copy that you then manage separately from the original, it maintains the link. So it changes dynamically whenever something changes in the source. So yeah, so here you can manage the page tree, which is ultimately the content that your users see. Yep, so this is scroll documents. Compare versions, as I mentioned. There's also a read functionality if you want a distraction-free environment to review your content, and then the compare versions, which, yeah, you can see here what has changed from one release to the other, for example. Great. That's it in terms of an overview of the two apps. I hope that this wasn't too much. Some very short takeaways and resources. There is more to come to cloud. So as mentioned, Viewport was just released this year. We'll be looking into more features, all areas of technical documentation, translations, variants, conditional content. If you do want to have a say in this, want to shape the future of our scroll apps on cloud, I'm happy for you to participate in user research. Just reach out to me. So we're continuously trying to improve and explore what our users need. So if you're up for that, that would be great. And Scroll Documents and Scroll Viewport are both available on Confluence Cloud from the Atlassian Marketplace. As many of you know, with all Atlassian Marketplace apps, you can trial them for free for 30 days. So, you know, nothing's keeping you from testing out what I've shown you today. If you're thinking about your migration to cloud, Atlassian has some really helpful material on how to migrate from server to cloud. We just recently published our own guides to specifically help you migrate from our server apps to our cloud apps. So if you're a Scroll Viewport user on server, have a look there. It will tell you what your options are. Can really encourage you to have a look there. Good. So let's hand it over now to the Q&A session. Now 23. Wow. I will probably just pick random questions because I'm not sure we can get through all of the 23. So from what I'm seeing, so Sebastian, I think you're asking, is it possible to run Viewport locally like the HTML exporter app? Because HTML exporter is not available in cloud yet. So that's correct. So HTML exporter is not available on cloud. So maybe, Stefan, you want to say a few words to that? Is it possible to run Viewport locally like the HTML exporter?
So currently it's not possible to do that, but we are aware of that. And we will bring a solution to cloud, but how that will look like and when it will come, I don't have any information about that. Yep. So currently, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously I cannot bring this question back to you, Sebastian, but I do understand a lot of you are looking to serve on-premise customers, for example. So we do understand that it could be helpful sometimes to have it in internal networks as well. So thanks for that question. Okay, Olivia, so I suppose we should look into the versioning questions as well. Olivia is asking, will version selection change the URL parameter? So I guess, Stefan, you could answer that.
Yeah, so I expect that this refers to if you switch from one version to another one. If this is the case, then yes, this will change currently the URL because of the fact that Viewport is identifying pages by their page ID. And what Scroll Documents does, it simply copies a page if you create a new version, which will generate a new page ID. And therefore, one page will have two separate URLs currently. But we as a Viewport team, we are looking into things we can improve to generate stable URLs so that users won't end up on a 404 page or anything like that.
Yeah. So another question from Olivia, which goes to the same direction, is, can I set the URL parameter per version? Yes, you can. But currently, going back to Stefan's note on the current limitations, you'll need to change the version name. So at the moment where we type the version name, that's exactly what defines the URL parameter. So if you're looking to change that, it will have to be the version name currently. Also, Olivia, can I restrict access to a version? Dash, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Yes, you can. And that's kind of the, so the way Scroll Documents works, as Laura mentioned, is, Stefan mentioned, that when you save a version, it basically creates a snapshot, which is a copy of your working version of the document. And because it is a separate page tree, you can restrict access to any version in your sort of version list. And you can use the Scroll Documents restriction manager to do that, which basically lets you apply bulk restrictions on all the pages in a particular version of a document.
Yeah. If the answer was also about how does it look on the public side, that is currently not possible. So everything that you select for your viewport side, that is definitely public and viewable for everyone, independent on the version that they're on. It's just a note on that. So a lot of questions about pin pages. How do you control the release notes with labels? So maybe Stefan, a few words around that, how you control all of those elements.
So pin pages, those news pages, they are controlled by page labels in Confluence itself. So we have specific page label names defined, which are scroll dash help center, and then use page, for example. And if you put that label on a page, the viewport theme will pick that up and treat that page differently from the others. We also have a documentation page about that where this is explained in detail, where you have to put the labels to achieve what you want. So I think we can share that in the follow-up email. But it's simply Confluence page labels, nothing fancy.
So here a question for Dash. This is your topic. So Dave is saying that they're currently using Scroll versions on Confluence Server. They have a Scroll Viewport license, but never got around to using it. We're considering moving to Scroll Documents Viewport on Confluence Cloud. Is there a clean migration path from versions to documents?
Right. So today, there is no migration path available, but that is something that is super high on our priority list. That's what we have been working on for the last few months, and is going to be on top of our to-do list for next year as well. So just to give you a heads up, so Scroll Documents is going to be the alternative for Scroll versions on cloud. There's not going to be a Scroll versions for cloud, and that is one of the reasons why we are working on building more and more functionality into Scroll Documents to improve the feature parity between these two apps, and then also provide a migration path down the line. So that is something that we're working on, and that's definitely going to be coming out hopefully sometime later next year. And okay, I see there's another question there which says, can documents inherit pages from previous versions in the same way as Scroll versions works? The short answer is no, and I would like to explain why. It is because of the way versioning works in both these apps. They are fundamentally different, the way versioning works. In Scroll Documents, we create a snapshot by copying the page tree of your working version at a given point in time. As a result, there is no link that exists between the previous two versions. So they are two separate copies, which is very different from how it works in Scroll versions. But having said that, we understand this is an important functionality in documentation, and we are researching and also plan to bring features that will enable users to manage these kind of scenarios in a better way. I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't promise that it would be the same experience, but we would definitely work into bringing some functionality that enables you to manage inheritance in some way.
Yeah. So I do think we answered Sebastian's questions about the future of versions to for cloud. When it comes to server, I don't know, we don't have anyone from Scroll versions here right now, but yeah, the plan is definitely not to bring Scroll versions as it is today to the cloud version from server. I believe I've also answered Toby's questions already. So the access restrictions set in Scroll Documents do not apply to the live published space, to the live published site. It applies to the authoring space, as you say, so in Confluence. Is there anything else that we should note here, Dash, about restrictions? Anything that else you want to know? A lot of questions about restrictions.
Maybe I can add something for Viewport, because I've seen that also here and there as a question. So currently, if you publish content with Viewport, it will be public. but we are currently working on an authentication possibility for your viewport side. So it will be possible that you can restrict your viewport side from the public, but this applies to the whole viewport side. It's not possible to restrict single pages or set single pages behind a login. What possible is today already if you have a space which is part of a viewport site and you restrict a page to a single user, or yeah, basically you exclude the app user basically from viewing that page, then this page won't be published to the viewport side. So it will be staying in your space. So it won't be available online. And as said, authentication is a big feature we are working on currently, and is probably also the next big feature which is released with Viewport.
Yeah. So I believe Thomas and Martin, both of your questions have been answered with that regarding authentication. So yeah, expect more there, definitely. So the Toby has another question comparing scroll versions with scroll documents. Can the scroll ignore option be used to exclude some pages from being published to the static site? Dash, a few words about the scroll ignore macro.
Are we talking about the macro here? Pages. I think this is in regards to publishing certain pages. I think there are labels in Viewport, if I'm not wrong, Stefan, that you can apply, which prevents certain pages from being published to the public site.
Yeah, so we have an exclude page label. This will exclude the site from the search of your viewport site and also from your page tree, but it still will be published. So you still can access this page if you just type in the URL. If you want to exclude certain pages completely, then you have to put on page restrictions to that page in Confluence.
Good. So Kirsten is asking, can you only edit one version at a time, the working version? Dash?
Right. So no, you can edit any versions in parallel. As I said, because versions are basically different page trees, which are actually available in the space, you can navigate to the actual pages and edit them. But the workflow that Laura showed in the demo or the webinar is actually the one that we prescribe. It's the recommended way of working. But if you have any specific use cases in mind, then we would definitely love to hear about it. And you can reach out to us maybe via support@k15t. Would that be the best way to do it? Yeah. Help@k15t. And we would love to get in touch with you to understand more about your use case there.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, a lot of questions about this. Very interesting about restrictions in general, which is always a very a complex topic already in Confluence. There's anonymous attendee. Is every author able to add versions, or can I restrict the ability to certain users? Mm-hmm. Dash, maybe a few words around how restrictions exactly work in that regard.
Yeah. So in simple terms, Scroll document does not introduce any new permission models, but just builds on the existing Confluence permissions. So you can restrict users from saving new version, because saving a new version is basically creating new pages in the space. So it is tied to the add pages permission on the space. So anyone who has add pages permission will be able to save or create versions in that particular space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can I give, so anonymous attendee, can I give the versions their names in advance? Interesting question.
I am afraid I'm not entirely sure. I mean, would you want to create the versions in advance and then keep working on them? Or I'm not exactly clear what the question is about.
Yeah, probably also not knowing what the content will be. But yeah, so as you mentioned, Dash, I think you've already sort of answered this, that a version is always a copy of a page tree. So in that sense, it will always have content already, right?
Yeah. But if it's just in order to sort of remove the confusion, as you saw in the demo, there was this working version, you can always change that to something that is more meaningful to you. It doesn't need to be the working version. So if you are working on, so if let's say you have saved the snapshot for 1.0 and you're working on 2.0, you can rename the working version to say something like 2.0 in progress or something, just for your reference. And then once you're done with that, when you save the snapshot, you can call the snapshot 2.0. So that would be the strategy for sort of naming your versions in advance.
Stefan, any questions that you've seen that you'd like to answer from the list in particular? Anything that has?
Yeah, maybe the last one to clear things up there. So I guess it refers to if you generated a site with, let's say, a space or a document, you have a certain URL where the page title is in the title, in the URL. And I guess, Katarina, you are referring to what happens if you rename the page in Confluence, if the page URL will break. If so, then no, that's not the case. As mentioned earlier, Viewport identifies pages by their page ID. So if you call the help center, then if you call your help center Viewport site, and you see the page ID within the URL, and you can rename your pages as much as you like, as soon the page ID itself doesn't change, which only happens if you delete the page. The links will still be accessible, also if you share them to any other places.
Yeah, so two big themes that I see here: restrictions and URL. Definitely some of the more interesting things, seems, at least for this group. Dash, maybe for you, was there anything that stood out in the list that you'd like to answer? Maybe there are some questions that came as duplicates.
There's one question that I wanted to address here. I think it's about the integration, whether the version picker only works in combination of both the apps, or would it work with scroll documents only as well? And the background is because, so this is from Florian, and this has, they have invested time in restructuring their content with refined theme. So yeah, I understand the question is whether the version picker will work with refined theme. Right now, there is no integration available, and this version picker will be available on Confluence, on Viewport Cloud only. So sites that are published using Viewport Cloud. And I saw another question, which was regarding was from an anonymous user, which asked about, how about shifting pages? Is the tree version 2? Yes, it's a good question. It is. And this is also kind of one of the advantages of documents over versions, where if you change the structure of your page tree in different versions, that is also reflected And that is not reflected across all versions. You can differentiate between that. You can track changes to that. And it will also be reflected in your published viewport site.
Yeah. I think there's one remaining one on restrictions, which is pretty easy to answer. Using scroll documents with free Confluence, can you set restrictions? Yes, no.
No. Yeah. So as I said, we build on the Confluence restriction system. So because it's not available on the host application, you won't get that functionality with scroll documents.
Yeah. I've seen one question here, which I find really interesting. It's a bummer that I cannot have a conversation with you, but Diogo is basically asking, to summarize the question, if it's possible to have for one page in his viewport side a version 1.2.3, and for another page a version 1.2.5, and then individually select. So I guess that's not possible. I assume that would be something like page level versioning, where you version each of your pages. But yeah, so Dash, I guess you can chime in here as well. But the way Documents works is that it versions all of the whole set of pages that you have in the same way, right? So
yeah.
3 versions. Yeah.
So unless you have that page, so as long as you have that page in the different versions of the document, they will be available. But otherwise, there is no granular way of handling that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So we're almost out of time. I do want to, just because there are a few at the start and at the end, just a few questions of what's possible today with translations and managing multiple versions, managing multiple languages. So Scroll Translations, the app that we have on server, is not currently available for cloud. Maybe Stefan or Dash, a few notes around what you could do if you really wanted to publish multiple languages to Viewport, for example, today.
So yeah, for Viewport, there are actually 2 possibilities. Both are workarounds with their pros and cons. The first one would be to just simply create 2 viewport sites, or as many sites as you need, per language, 1 viewport site, and adding the spaces in those languages to those viewport site, and then linking the single languages in the header as a header link. So let's say, as an example, you have the language German and English. You would link on the English Help Center German in the header, and on the German Help Center the English one in the header. The downside there, of course, would be if I'm on page A and I click that link, I would lose the context of that page. So I would always end up on the product homepage there. The other possibility is, and this comes with some few restrictions, so please don't nail me down on that answer. We can answer that in the email, probably more precise. But you also could simply generate 2 versions in that case, and name them after the languages. And then you have 1 viewport site. You have 1 document version for each language. And then, yeah, you get the same feature set as you would have versions. The downside there is, of course, you can't have versions anymore. So you can't have a version of a version in that sense. And there are, probably also more downsides, which I can't think of right now. Maybe Dash, you have some in your head, but we could also answer that in the email more precisely.
And that's the main downside, that you then sort of lose the versioning capability. So you won't have like a versions of your language documents as well. So the languages kind of become the versions of your document. So if you're certain that for your product, you don't need to maintain multiple versions and you just need language capability, then this could be a workaround. But if you go down this road, you kind of are stuck with this approach. And maybe if tomorrow you want to have versions, then that becomes difficult. So yeah, depends on your requirement.
Yeah, good. Just maybe to summarize, a theme of questions that I've seen come up here about one question is, are the docs published to somewhere hosted outside of Confluence? Then also about the updating of the site. Does it always scan all sites? And can you automate the process? So to all three questions, published, so the way it's published, yes. So the content that you select for your site is hosted by us. So we take it out of Confluence Cloud to transform it into this static site. When it comes to the updating of the site, yes, currently it scans all of the sites, no matter if they have recent changes on them or not, and across all of your content sources. And there's no way to automate the process currently. However, we're interested in all of these things. So if you've heard something today and you're not happy with the answer, it's likely that we are looking to change it. So do feel free to reach out either to help@k15t.com, or if I may click back, sorry, also to me here. If it's a question you already have an answer to, but would like to discuss in more detail your use case, please feel free to reach out to me as well. And I'd love to have a conversation about that. For any of the questions we didn't get to today, if you, unless you have asked the question as an anonymous attendee, we will get back to you with an answer. And hopefully we can keep the conversation going. So yeah, that's it from my side. Stefan, Dash, is there anything else that you want to add? Anything I've missed?
No, happy to hear from you.
Yes, very excited about this. Thank you so much for attending and your interest in the Scroll apps. And hopefully with your help, we can make them better, even better. Thanks, and see you soon. Bye.